Hello and good morning, you guys. I am here to share with you similarities and differences between 20th and 21st century fairy tales. And that fairy tale is Sleeping Beauty. Sorry, technical difficulties. So we're going to start off first by discussing the film Sleeping Beauty. In Sleeping Beauty, we get the happily ever after that every little girl wants, right? The princess marries the prince and they live happily ever after in his castle. But let's start off by the beginning, how it starts. So the beginning of the movie starts with Aurora being born, and the king and the queen and their kingdom are celebrating the birth of Aurora. Now these three kind fairies show up and each decide to bestow one gift on the child. Flora, our first fairy, she decides to gift Aurora with the gift of beauty. Fauna, our second fairy, gifts Aurora with the gift of song. And right when Merryweather, which is the third and final fairy, is about to gift Aurora, Maleficent shows up.
Why, it's Maleficent.
And everyone says that she's jealous of the fact that she wasn't invited. I don't really see it that way. I see it more along the line of shows up just because she's the villain and she could do whatever she wants. But anyway, she shows up and she wants to also bestow a gift on Aurora. Anyway, so Maleficent ends up cursing her to prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel on her 16th birthday. And then just ups and leaves. So, now is actually when we get into why Aurora ended up in the cottage. She is actually taken there and raised there by the three fairies to protect Aurora from being found by Maleficent and her curse fulfilling. So when Aurora turns 16, the fairies ask her to go find some more berries, and they use that time to get very sentimental, and they make her gifts and stuff like that. While Aurora's out on her stroll for picking berries, she meets our prince. She meets Prince Philip, but she doesn't know that. She doesn't know who he is. So she ends up singing and dancing with Prince Philip, and all of a sudden, you know, they fall in love at first sight type of thing. And he says when he can see her again, she says, "Oh, never, never." And he's like, "Never?" She's like, "No, never mind. At the cottage. I'm going to meet you at the cottage tonight, okay?" So she runs home excited. She's excited that she's fallen in love with this guy. She barely knows.
Stranger danger, stranger danger.
When Aurora gets to the cottage, she is so excited to talk to the fairies about who she just met. But the fairies are a little confused because they have other things planned. They are actually planning to take her back home to her mom and her dad, so she can live her life, basically. So when they tell her that, and they say that she can never see this boy again, she becomes completely heartbroken, in tears, and I guess just how any princess would react when she can't see the guy of her dreams ever again, type of thing. So in the next scene, they all travel back to the castle. And that is where the kingdom is waiting for Aurora's arrival. Now, they enter the castle without anybody knowing them, including her parents. So they don't know that she's there. So the fairies end up putting her in her bedroom and giving one last gift to Aurora, which is her princess crown, which is supposed to symbolize her royalty. She begins to cry, and the fairies just kind of like give her a minute. They step out of the room, and they leave her alone. They give her a few minutes to kind of like get together. In the scene where Aurora's crying in her bedroom, you begin to hear a creepy like song in the background. So we all know what that means. The fairies end up hearing this music and they know it's Maleficent. So they immediately react and they run into the room, but it was too late. By the time that they actually got access to the staircase and they actually found Aurora, she had already pricked her finger. She's already in her eternal slumber, and there's no way to wake her up except for with true love's kiss. So the fairies make a decision to go and rescue Philip from Maleficent's castle. They successfully find Philip. They help Philip defeat the henchmen, and but there's one final obstacle in their way. It ends up being Maleficent turning into a fire-breathing dragon. Now, at one point, the battle gets really intense towards the end, and Philip is pinned up against a cliff. The fairies come and enchant his sword. He throws the sword. He kills Maleficent. Good guys win. With defeating Maleficent, they all head back to the castle to go ahead and wake up Aurora. As soon as Philip gets there, he leans over to Aurora and he gives her true love's kiss. And they live happily ever after. We finally made it to discussing Maleficent. Now, in my personal opinion, Maleficent is one of the greatest live action films that Disney has released. The story is very different, and this time we actually get to see the story from a villain's point of view. This film is sort of based on the original concept of Sleeping Beauty, but it's its own fantastic film. We go into her past and find out things that we obviously didn't know since they were, brought to us in this film. We finally get the story coming from the villain's point of view, and it has a twist at the same time, and they finally get the happily ever after. So let's get started. This film starts by introducing Maleficent as a young girl. We're told that she lives deep in the moors, which is a part of the forest that she guards and protects the people and things inside of it. And then one day, one of the guards of the moors catches a boy trying to steal something, and Maleficent is summoned. So she immediately heads over there and to investigate. As she spoke with the boy, she learned that they actually had a lot in common, and they got along, and they created a bond, right? This boy turns out to be Stefan. And as time went on, they spent more time together, and they ended up growing a real relationship. And on her 16th birthday, they shared true love's kiss. More time goes by, and Stefan stops coming around, and Maleficent has been busy protecting the Moors. Then, back at the castle, the king is dying.
I'm dying.
So his dying wish is for someone to kill Maleficent. Stefan heads to the Moors and to see Maleficent after he hasn't seen her in God knows how long, and he wins her over again, but he ends up drugging her and putting her into a deep sleep. So Maleficent ends up waking up in an excruciating pain, and she is double-crossed. He delivers to the king Maleficent's wings. So the king gifts Stefan with his daughter's hand in marriage, the princess, and becoming the new king of the kingdom. Maleficent later finds 2 hunters that have captured a helpless crow. With her magic, she changes the crow into a human. The 2 hunters get scared, and they release the crow. The crow, Diaval, grants Maleficent with gratitude and becomes her humble servant. She says, I quote, "I need you to be my wings," end quote. He later is given instructions by Maleficent to go to the kingdom and find out why Stefan did this to her. When he comes back with terrible news and the reason for he did that to her, she became very upset. So he did that to her so he could become king. So she becomes full of hate and evil, and some months pass by, and Diaval heads back to the kingdom to get an update from Maleficent on what's going on, and he comes back with that Stefan and the queen have had a baby, and they are celebrating her birth with the entire kingdom. Maleficent never receives an invitation, but she decides to invite herself. The next scene follows the original film, where the 3 kind fairies come and they bestow a gift on Aurora. The first fairy gives her gift, the second fairy gives her gift, but right before the third fairy gives her gift, Maleficent shows up with her classic, well. Chills, right? Maleficent curses Aurora. At first, like when she's doing her curse, she says that I curse Aurora to prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel, and she will result in an eternal slumber, and she will never awaken. And Stefan's like, please, I beg of you, please don't do this. And she's like, I like when you beg. Do it again. And he's like, I beg you. So she's like, so then she goes and she says, so Aurora will or can be awakened from her eternal slumber, but only by true love's kiss. And that was an arrow straight to the heart to Stefan, because he knows that true love's kiss does not exist. So that's a sign to Stefan, telling him that his daughter is never going to awaken. And she says that the curse will last to the end of time and no power on earth can change it. Now what happens after does follow the original film, at least for the most part. The twist is that Maleficent locates Aurora and she keeps tabs on her and eventually grows a relationship with Aurora. Watches over her from afar, makes sure that she's safe. Even Diaval watches after her. And they later create a bond, and 15 years go by, and her and Maleficent just like create like this motherly daughter bond that Aurora doesn't have. So there's a scene where Maleficent, it kind of clicks like to Maleficent, like, oh my god, I've grown a bond and feelings for this girl, and I cursed her. So one day when she's sleeping, she starts to whisper, she's in her bedroom, and she starts to whisper, I revoke my curse, let it be no more. And she repeats it like a couple times, and as she repeats it, she gets louder. Now, unfortunately, she cannot revoke the curse because of the words that she used in the beginning. No power on earth can change it. And in the movie, those words are whispered to her and they taunt her. So Maleficent was in shock and in sadness of the outcome, but she tries to protect Aurora by asking her to become the Queen of the Moors and stay with her to prevent the curse from being fulfilled. Aurora is filled with joy and she says yes. So in the excitement, she heads back to the cottage to see her aunties with the great news. On her way home, she cuts through the woods and she runs into Prince Philip. They have a moment per usual. She tells him that they'll see each other again one day. When Aurora arrives back at the cottage, the three fairies, after Aurora has said what she's going to do, they tell her the truth. They tell her where she comes from, who her dad is, and what they were doing that day, and the reason she was there in the first place. When she learns that Maleficent is the reason that she was separated from her parents, she becomes furious and she goes to confront Maleficent. Aurora was heartbroken and felt tricked. On the afternoon of her 16th birthday, the fairies and Aurora head back to Stefan's castle. When they arrive, Stefan is furious because they arrived too early. He wasn't ready. Stefan had been planning since the night that they took Aurora how he was going to defeat Maleficent. Every inch of the castle covered in iron barricades, and the guards as well as himself. And he had iron armor and iron weapons, because that is Maleficent's weakness. At that moment, back in the woods of the Moors, Maleficent had given up hope on saving Aurora. When she finds Prince Philip in the woods, and she's like, oh my god, this must be the guy that Aurora was talking about. So she puts him under this trance, and she and Diaval, with Stefan, head back to the castle to try to see if Philip's kiss will wake up Aurora. But back at the castle, Stefan locked up Aurora to prevent anything from happening to her. And again, creepy music. She starts to follow this thing and she gets into a trance. It has begun. The curse is following through to the end. Maleficent and the gang are doing everything in their power to get there in time. Aurora still pricks her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel, and she falls into her eternal slumber. The second she pricks her finger, she collapses on the floor. The moment that happens, actually, Maleficent gets like this really like strong feeling, like if she knows like it's done, like it's been done. Maleficent's in tears and continues to head to the castle to see what she can do. When she arrives, she sneaks into the castle and she notices all the barricades, so she tries to be very careful about it. She approaches Aurora's bedroom, but then she notices that the fairies are guarding the bedroom. So she kind of like pushes Philip in front of the door, snaps, and Philip falls, and it catches the fairies' attention. They bring him in. He kisses Aurora, but here's the crazy part. It doesn't work. Philip kisses Aurora, and she doesn't wake up, unlike the original Sleeping Beauty. So that was Maleficent's last hope. She was hopeful that this kiss that Philip gave Aurora would wake her, but it doesn't work. So in tears, Maleficent is telling her how much she loves her and how much she cares about her, and that she will, for the rest of her life, she will do whatever it takes to make it up to her. And Maleficent approaches Aurora and leans over and gives Aurora a kiss on the forehead. As Maleficent begins to leave the room, Aurora awakens. So that's the big twist between the original and this film. Due to the love that she had for Aurora, it is true love, and it woke Aurora up from her slumber. So that was like the big thing for me when I watched the movie for the first time. It's crazy. So Maleficent asks Aurora again if she wants to go ahead and come back home with her to the moors. And she says yes. So on their way out, there's like the castle's really empty, so it's kind of like weird, but like they were able to kind of like walk through. Then all of a sudden, nets started falling from the sky. Things were being thrown at Maleficent, shot at Maleficent, and she was like, like fighting, whatever. A battle takes place, and they catch like Maleficent under this like iron gate, so she's like in pain and she can't really move, and Aurora was able to get away. So Aurora was looking for something, some sort of weapon. She runs into this room and she finds Maleficent's wings encased in Stefan's quarters. So when she finds it, she's like, oh my god, let me see if I can go ahead and release them and see what happens. So as Maleficent is dealing with everybody else, she turns Diaval into a dragon. See, another twist. In the original film, Maleficent turns into the dragon, but this time it's Diaval. So she turns Diaval into a dragon, fire-breathing dragon, fire everywhere, burning all the people, and he was able to take off the net off of Maleficent. So in that moment, she's about to fight Stefan. She's still weak. She's still trying to get her pace, and her wings show up. Kick butt. After Maleficent manages to defeat all of the guards and get away from Stefan, she flies through this glass, but it's too late because Stefan cuffed her with an iron cuff and started hanging from her. So Maleficent starts flying to get Stefan off of her, and she manages to get high enough where he starts to slip and he lets go and he falls on one of the towers, and she approaches him and she has her hands on his throat, and she's like she's like ready to kill him. But she realizes that if she kills Stefan, she will lose Aurora forever. So she ends up cutting the cuff off and leaving Stefan alone, and she's like, we're done. As she walks away, Stefan tries to attack her. And on her way down, like she's getting ready to fly away, and on her way down, he jumps and she's like opens her wings and Stefan falls to his death. So the battle's over. Like, it's over. Maleficent restores the moors to its original beauty. She's happy now. She's got everything that she could ever want. She has Aurora. She has Diaval. She has her wings back. And Aurora is now the queen of the moors. So Maleficent knows that it's in good hands. With Maleficent getting her wings back, she's back to her old awesome self. And it ends with a wonderful moment of her in the clouds with her wings and her flying away with Diaval. And that's it. I believe it's safe to say that Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty are majorly different, but they're both fantastic movies, and for their time also. Maleficent came out in 2014, but Sleeping Beauty came out back in the 50s. It's completely different times and completely different, like, styles of life, I guess, is the way to say it, and how kind of, like, everything's evolved over the years, how women can actually be a hero. So I love Maleficent, and I love Sleeping Beauty, but Maleficent will always be my favorite, just due to the fact that my favorite villain was brought to the big screen. And we actually finally got to hear a story about her and how, you know, her life worked and why she became evil and everything like that. So I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.